And often I was asked about how many cylinders have you got in the marketplace? And I had no idea at all. And I just made a number up and they believed me and they moved on. But, you know, tracking assets is such an important part of the business. And it just makes a lot of sense, a lot of really good sense. But particularly in the case of the bulk business, because it's quite a compelling goal if you can take a couple of trucks off the road and still manage your business because you've got that much more efficiency. So thank you, Tamsin, for putting on the chat box the link to that internet report. And if you can dive into there later on, you can see those case studies that I referred to. But the company that's behind that is ANOVA. And if you want more details, I think you'll find the contact details in the report. But again, if you want more details on anything that we've discussed today, then please get in touch with Hattie and she can come back to us and we can follow up. So we're running a little bit over time, but I just want to bring Andrew back in because he very kindly joined us towards the middle of this discussion. So Andrew, from an equipment appliance perspective, what is the single thing that keeps you awake at night?
The single thing that keeps me awake at night.
Not your children.
No, not the children. But then mostly what would be the thing that keeps me at night is people that do installations without any permit or training. I'm mostly championing or trying to drive the idea of the safety of the appliances because from our side, where you come from the townships and whatever be the case, it is actually not something which people would adapt more to. So we're trying to put more weight out there in terms of the safety of the units. So that's what is keeping me busy currently, because I want to tap into more into that market. And raises awareness in terms of that. But then in all respect, in terms of we been trying to work very closely with the LPG Association in terms of driving that also. So yeah, that's what is currently keeping me awake at night currently.
Okay, and how can you stop the untrained installers operating? Is there an easy fix to that? I mean, consumer education might be one way, where you tell the consumer that they should ask for their credentials before they go ahead with the work. What other ideas are
there? From where I'm sitting, actually, there isn't any much other than consumer educations, customer educations, because most. I'll tell you from my experience, I get farmers that would install it themselves and they'll tell you that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to fit one of these things in. Mm-hmm. So we still under those, we're still running with a whole lot of people that think that they can do it themselves. And unless there is an incident in the market, there is no way of us actually knowing about it.
Right. Yeah, well, I guess the same farmer, he wouldn't let you jump on his tractor, would he?
No, he wouldn't.
Yeah. All right. I think we better draw this discussion to what has been really interesting. I just want to go around each of you and just give me one last point to go home with this discussion, so that we can have 3 things to take away and consider after we go home. Jeff, what would your single point be?
I think safety. Know the product, know how to work with it, and work safely with it. There was a couple more than one word, but safety is imperative in this game.
Yeah, thanks. Let me have one more go. Siko Kelly, how's that?
You are now an expert at it, David. So I tend to be exceedingly wordy, so I'm going to try to be concise. So my view, I think, is firstly, I think this forum that has been put together is an excellent one, and I would say, as a takeaway comment for me, I think if we could find more effective methods to manage the issues around, illegal filling, and so mainly looking at the safety risks and the potential consequences that could, land on the customers from that lack of control side of things. That would be my final comment.
Yeah, thanks. And Andrew, what would your last word be on this one?
I think it's going to be the same as the gentleman before. It's most likely safety, surrounding safety, and how we're going to go about governing that safety, because that's where the dangers are. Because into the market, which I would like to tap into, the concern is most like it's most surrounding around safety and how safe the products are. But then they have no idea that these units would need a certified gas installer to install them. So safety and education, I think, is one of what comes to my mind at present.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Certainly education has been mentioned a few times already today. And if you look really carefully behind me, you'll see on my wallpaper, you'll see a series of little books, and they're symbolic because we produce guidelines to good business practices, and we also have guides looking at specific parts of the business, including bulk storage and bulk road transport. So I'd encourage you to have a look, everybody, to have a look at the publications section in the WLPGA website. It's WLPGA.org, and Tamsin might be able to put something on there in the chat box for you to delve into, because it is a library. It's I think every single book behind me is reflected in one of the documents that we produced. So a lot of the information that we talk about and we discuss in these workshops emanates from that library. So education is key, and I think I wish all three of you well. You've all got your hearts in the right place, and I'm really pleased to have a panel that's full of safety champions, and I wish you well in keeping South Africa safe. Keep South Australia safe as well, but certainly keep South Africa safe, and hopefully we can run this workshop again in country, and we'll all catch up and discuss it face to face. So let me close the panel discussion at that, and thank you again, all three of you, Sikakeli, Jeff, Andrew.
Thank you.
And then Nervin, I need to come back to you, the Nerve Centre, to bring. I think now we move on to it's the last formal session of the workshop, and it's going to be run by Hadi with representatives from the government. Regulations and Standards and Municipal Bylaws is the title of the session. One more, I think. I thought we nearly had it then, Nervin. There we are. Regulations and Standards, and here we go. Regulations and Standards. So now, Hadi, do I hand over to you now? Do you want me involved in this discussion? What would you like to do?
David, we have the capable team of Tony, Zandi, and Monet who will take us through this session. So we'll hand over to them. Nevan will spotlight them shortly.
Okay, and I'll turn my camera off, and I'll come back to you at the end when you've finished.
Yes, thank you.
All yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to David and the panel that came just before us. There was a very interesting discussion there, and I will try our best to do something similar. As David alluded, today we will be covering South African regulations and standards, and I think on the slides visible, I'm not sure if, Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I can see it, Tony. That's
Okay,
good.
awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, as David alluded to, and as part of the program today, we will be covering the South African regulations and standards. Helping me out with this will be my colleague Zandile, and representative from the emergency services, Monet. If I could get the agenda up, please. The slide number 2. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So yes, the South African LP gas industry is obviously regulated on different levels, but for the purpose of this presentation, we will focus on the occupational health and safety side of things. And under the occupational health and safety side of things, the regulatory framework that basically covers the aspect would be the OSHA Act. So Zandi will go through that. She will then further explain the specific regulation that covers the LP gas industry and LP gas as a whole, more or less, which would be the pressure equipment regulations. She will also cover the relevant health and safety standards that would be pertinent to this discussion. She will cover the bylaws. I will then come back and discuss or contextualize the role of the LP Gas Association. And Monet will then take over after that, giving some more background on the health and safety standards from the fire safety side of things. And he will also provide some information as far as to what challenges they face in trying to enforce and make sure that these health and safety standards are adhered to by the industry players. Over to Zandile. Van, are the slides up? I can see them on my side.
Yeah, they're up. Thanks, Tony.
I don't know why they are not showing from my side, but good afternoon, everyone. I am Zandile Msholopa from the LPGSA. And as Tony has indicated that I'll be speaking more about the regulations, the standards that we have in South Africa. So luckily, David mentioned earlier on that when it comes to this industry, it is crucial to have a relationship with the government. And from our side, we are lucky that we have a government that assists us. So we do have an occupational health and safety, Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1993. So the intention of the health and safety, occupational health and safety, is to provide health and safety of person at work, and for the health and safety of the person in connection with the use of the plant or the machinery at work. And also with the occupational health and safety, it also provide protection of the person other than person at work against the hazards to health and safety that arise in connection of the activities that they face on their work on the daily basis. And then also within the Occupational Health and Safety Act, we have an advisory council that assists the minister or advise the minister on the health and safety related matters and also other matters. Also, the best news for our industry is that we have on the occupational health and safety, we have section 44 that incorporates the PER, which is full known as pressure equipment regulation. And going to the second slide for PER. I'm not sure if it's showing, Nivan.
On my end, I can see PER slide. I'm not sure if everybody else can. Maybe David or somebody can just confirm. It should be the slide that shows PER or pressure equipment regulations at the top.
Yeah, I can see that very clear.
Thanks, David.
Okay, Thank you for that. The pressure equipment regulation was approved in 2009. This assists in the regulations that cover the design, the manufacture of the pressure equipment, the repair, modification, maintenance, and inspection of the pressure design. This also exercises the control of handling installations, maintenance of pressure equipment, and the responsibilities that are set for the users, for importers and manufacturers in this case. So also with the responsibilities of few of the responsibilities of the importers and manufacturers, this includes that before they can import the pressure equipment or even distribute the pressure equipment in South Africa, they need to have a permit that is issued by an appointed body in South Africa, appointed by the chief inspector. So the permit falls under a permit scheme, and the permit scheme is facilitated or is administered by LPGSA. And in respective to this scheme, it covers the appliances that operate in LPG, regulators, hoses, and cylinders. And also in this pressure equipment regulation, the pressure equipment regulation incorporate safety standards that control installations that are related to LPG, filling and storage of LPG sites. Next slide, Nivan. Thank you. Now I can see. So we have a few or a series of South African national standards, but I'm not going to mention all of them. I have said few of them. Among them, we have SANS 10087 Part 7, which is the standard that talks about the filling of LPG cylinders not exceeding 49 kg and the storage of LPG cylinders not exceeding 48 kg. So the good news about this standard, it also speaks more about the safety distances that needs to be met for a filling area and the storage area. It also speaks about the cylinder filling equipment itself, what a person needs to understand, things like when the scales needs to be calibrated and things like that. And then also cylinder handling, which is more of the operator itself. What are the responsibilities of the operator before they can fill an LPG cylinder? It also helps with prevention, control of fire involving LPG cylinders or LPG filling sites. And then the next standard here will be SANS 10087 Part 3. This standard is more of the storage vessels, like your bulk tanks that exceed 500 liters. And then in this standard, it talks about the construction and the design of these LPG vessels, and then the installations of the bulk vessels in terms of the safety distances. Is the site applicable enough to have such bulk vessels? And also it assists with the risk assessment prior the installation of the sites. And it also helps a lot in terms of commissioning and decommissioning of the bulk storages or vessels. And we also have a standard that is, or standard code that is a SANS 10019. This standard helps in terms of covering the design, the manufacturing of the, and maintenance of the refillable and non-refillable pressure cylinders. And then within this standard, there are a series of standards that are incorporated here. I saw a comment on the chat box where it was asking what standards are allowed for composite cylinders. So this will be more of your best standard to have if you're planning to import or to manufacture in South Africa. So this SANS 10019 will tell you which standards that are allowed or accepted in South Africa. So I have just listed a few which are not limited to those ones. ISO 4706, which is for refillable welded steel cylinders, EN 12245, which is fully wrapped composite cylinders, and SANS 20703, which is for refillable welded aluminum cylinders. And also we have standards that are covering appliances, which among those standards will be SANS 1237, that is for low pressure regulators that are operating on LPG. We also have SANS 1539, which is a standard that controls appliances that operate on LPG and natural gas. And we also have 1156 that speaks about flexible or tubing of LPG hoses. And next slide. I'm not sure if it's showing.
We've got bylaws now.
Yeah, it's on
Yeah,
Neil?
okay. Thank you. And we also have bylaws in South Africa. So the bylaws are requirements in addition to the South African safety standards. They are not they are not less strict than the safety standard. They give more guidance and they assist where a situation is not clear on the safety standards. So when it comes to the bylaws, they differ based on each local authority. So other local authority will have something different from another one. So it's always best that prior in installation or prior trying to open a filling site in South Africa, you have to visit or consult the local authority to understand their bylaws. And also you have to make sure that in South Africa, you have all these safety standards to assist you. And that will be it from my side. Thank you, Tony, back to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that, Zandile. Just before I continue to the role of the LP Gas Association in all of this, I would just like to give a quick summary of what my colleague Zandile has discussed. I would first like to say that, given the wealth of information she's provided, it shows that there is a decent level of buy-in from our government as far as, how well regulated and how well documented these different requirements are. We have the OSHA Act, and in the OSHA Act, we have the pressure equipment regulations, and within those regulations, we have sets of standards, namely your South African national standards, which go into further detail as to the various activities that would be relevant for any player in the LP gas industry. So these standards cover a wide array of things. You have product standards for things like appliances and regulators. And you also have installation standards, things like your 087 Part 7, 087 Part 1, which actually detail the manner in which installations must be carried out. They detail things like your minimum safety distances and so forth. So we can see there's a nice kind of like it's a circular environment, if I can call it that. You have on the one side where the gas will end up being used, which is your products. You have your equipment, your pipeline, and so forth, which is also permitted and is also enforced or governed by the relevant health and safety standards. And you have the installation standards, which then covers how ultimately the entire system needs to be installed. That's pretty much it for the summary. If I can then go on to the next slide, for the LPGSA role in the entire layout of things. I'm not sure if it's up. I think I have a delay on my side.
It's showing
The
role of
LPGSA
now, Tony.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'll just quickly open it up on my side so I can also see. Okay, thank you. So the LP Gas Association is basically an industry association, and the activities we carry out are, we are able to do so because we are empowered by a mandate that we have received from the Department of Employment and Labor. So as part of this mandate, we carry out a few things. I'm sure earlier you heard my colleague Sandile talking about permits for cylinders and appliances. Through our mandate, we have been tasked with actually permitting and verifying cylinders that are not over the size of 48 kilograms, and also appliances, as well as LP gas hose and low pressure regulators. The two schemes that we do that through are the cylinder verification scheme and the safe appliance verification scheme. I must note that these schemes don't cover all cylinders or all appliances or all hoses or all regulators. They cover those or the pressure equipment that falls under the relevant health and safety standards. So for example, my colleague mentioned SANS 1539. As far as the safe appliance verification scheme, we do not oversee appliances that fall out of the scope of SANS 1539. So there's a very close link between our mandate and the relevant national health and safety standard, as that is what we refer to when carrying out our permitting. Next, we have also been mandated to carry out the training of LP gas installers. As part of the previous discussion, I'm sure you guys heard Andrew referring to a qualified installer or authorized installer or something of the sort. As part of the PER, it is stated that only an authorized person can carry out an LP gas installation. And how they receive that authorization is by undergoing the relevant training, which we provide in combination with the SAQCC gas. And once they've gone through the training and have found to be compliant and competent at what they need to do, they then get their full license, which then makes them an authorized person. So without that license, an installer should not be carrying out any work. Should they carry out work without that authorization, they would be contravening that part of the pressure equipment regulations, which would then constitute a crime. Secondly, or thirdly, we also carry out the registration of gas practitioners. That's more a combination of the training. So we carry out the training, and then through SAQCC gas, we also help with the licensing of the gas practitioners. So that's more of a package deal, the training and registration. And as far as the enforcing side of things, we also carry out inspections and investigations. I will go into that I will go into a bit more detail in the coming minutes. As far as what we have been mandated to do by the Department of Employment and Labor, I can note that this is it's not easy to carry out. It can be extremely challenging at times, but it can also be quite rewarding at times, because at the end of the day, specifically, for example, with regards to the permitting of various pressure equipment, I personally feel, satisfied or very happy knowing that I played a part in ensuring that whatever products are sold or distributed to our South African citizens have been tested. They've gone through the relevant vigorous testing, I must note, and they have been found to be compliant with the relevant South African national standards. So it's a bit of a give and take. It can be challenging, but at the end of the day, it's also quite rewarding, knowing that you are playing a part in ensuring the general safety of your fellow citizens. So yes, inspections and incident investigations. These, incidents specifically are unfortunately part of the game. The LP gas industry, I'm sure, members or delegates from other countries also have experiences with incidents and things going wrong when standards haven't been adhered to, when unqualified people do things that they shouldn't be doing. You get, hazardous situations which ultimately sometimes turn out into incidents. So the LP Gas Association has also been tasked with helping to investigate these incidents, helping to uncover and understand what led to the incident happening, what were the causes, who was involved, were they qualified, were they unqualified, was the appliance that was being used at that time permitted, was it unpermitted? You know, we've been tasked with uncovering or helping to uncover these facts, as we do not do this alone. We do this hand in hand with the relevant bodies, be it DEL, be it your fire department, or be it the South African police force. Yeah, so the compliance officers would be the parties responsible or tasked with that duty, together with the bodies you see named here. And as far as the enforcing side of things, we do carry out inspections with the Department of Employment and Labor just to ensure that these health and safety standards have been met. So I think for the purposes of this presentation, I think what would be relevant would be, you know, for example, a filling site or filling plant. A filling plant would be governed by a set of standards, namely, for example, SANS 087 Part 7 and SANS 087 Part 3. So what we would do as the association is actually go to a specific or random site and assess or audit the activities they're carrying out. They audit whether or not the people have been trained, audit you know, things like safety distances and so forth, in order to ascertain whether or not that filling site or the activities being carried out at a certain premises are being carried out in accordance with the relevant national health and safety standards. So once again, you can see it ties back. The health and safety standards are there, which then govern whatever they govern. And then we then as an association use the same health and safety standards to audit these sites and these people to ensure that they are meeting what has been listed in the relevant health and safety standard. And as far as what we do in order to educate and spread awareness, there was a comment earlier on in the chat box that, you know, in Africa, we are very skeptical about using LP gas. And I think this is very, very true for the South African market. I think as far as the African continent, we have one of the lower per household. I think we have one of the lower LP gas usage rates per household. So I think that is very true for our market. But as LP gas, we are very active in trying to spread awareness and trying to show that LP gas is a viable, safe alternative energy source, just so long as you use it within the prescribed bounds. So what we do as the association to spread awareness is radio interviews. Just yesterday, we had a radio interview with Alex FM, just trying to spread awareness due to an incident that happened. You know, because what you want to do is you want to quell any fears that your potential and existing gas users may have. Unfortunately, the news that spreads faster is there was an explosion here, or there was an accident there, or there was a fire there. That news spreads very quickly, but the news about how safe it is, how reliable it is, how cheap it is, doesn't spread as quickly. So as the association, we try to counteract the negatives with the positives, and radio interviews are one of the avenues we use. Secondly, we also try and engage in workshops with other industry associations and other industry bodies. So what we have found, or one of the approaches we've taken specifically, is to try and partner up with the hospitality and insurance industry, because we have found that you know, this is a very high risk area, specifically for hospitality. You can find at times that, you know, a lot of gas is being stored on a specific site, or, you know, you have bulk tank installations, for example, or you have high volumes of gas on a site. So if the hospitality industry understands what is required as far as the occupational health and safety side of things, they are then better equipped to make sure that the people at their hotels, at their lodges, at their Airbnbs, and so forth, they're better able to ensure the safety of those people. Secondly, insurance organizations have also come to the plate, which is, we are very happy to communicate, because insurance, you know, if your insurance company or if your insurance people are not coming to the plate as far as trying to ensure the health and safety side of things, it can be a bit difficult because, you know, if I have an installation at my house and if I have a non-compliant installation at my house that carried out by a unauthorized installer and something happens at my premises, if the insurance investigation finds out those details, I will not be able to claim for any damages. So us being able to communicate to the insurance organization, different insurance companies, what the South African National Health and Safety Standards require, they are then better able to also educate not only themselves, the people that carry out the investigations on their behalf, you know, people that market for them. They're also able to ensure that these standards are met, assisting us with that. We also ensure that we spread safety information in the things of safety pamphlets, you know, newsletters on our social media and on the various platforms that we have. We ensure that we disseminate the relevant safety information because we are currently living in a digital age. So, you know, it's very important that we have a presence on all the platforms or on every platform possible. And lastly, we also offer training as the LPGAS Association. I did go into some detail in the previous slide. So as I said, in order to carry out any LPGAS work or in order to complete an LPGAS installation, I need to be trained and I need to be qualified to do so. As I said, the LPGAS Association does offer that training. As part of that training, we also offer things like cylinder filling courses. We offer health and safety courses, you know, cylinder filling, cylinder handling, and so forth. And I think an offering that I'm very proud to communicate is our new training bay, where people that come for the installer training courses are actually able to complete a practical on-site and be assessed on-site and get the results within a very, very short period of time. I think we do have a video on that. If we could display that, please.
My name is Khadija, the Managing Director of LPGSA. Welcome to the LPGSA National Training Center. The Liquefied Petroleum Industry Association of South Africa, LPGSA, is a non-profit organization that represents companies which are involved in the installation, distribution, and retailing of LPG and LPG equipment. LPGSA promotes the safe and compliant use of LPG in South Africa. At the same time, we work with government stakeholders to promote the use of LPG as a preferred source of energy for households. In addition, LPGSA, through the South African Qualification and Certification Committee, SAQCC-GES, we are mandated by the Department of Labour to provide LPG installation training within South Africa. We offer theoretical and practical training courses structured to ensure full and complete understanding of the requirements of SABS standard, in particular SANS 0087 series, which deals with the handling, storage, distribution, and maintenance of LPG in domestic, commercial, and industrial installation. This also includes auto gas conversion and maintenance. Upon the successful completion of their training, candidates are then referred to SAQCC-GES for registration as LPG installer. This is as per pressure equipment regulation requirements. LPGSA is proud of its latest training offering, the Domestic Practical POE training, aimed at complementing the existing domestic installer courses. The course is designed to assist the domestic installer candidate with a practical installation experience under the control environment with the supervision of the training facilitator, who is also a qualified and registered LPGAS installer. The domestic installer practical POE will operate parallel to the existing mentoring system. This training is an important offering to the industry as it will address some of the inefficiencies in the mentoring system, but also will enable us to manage and ensure high quality standard of domestic installation around the country, thus making it safer for the consumer. Skills development is at the heart of LPGSA operation, and through our training offerings, we aim to contribute to the national development policies. As a result, we are constantly working with our partners to develop and encourage young people and women to take interest in the installation industry. In 2021, we launched the LPG Domestic Installation Bursary, where 6 young women were offered the bursary and are currently undergoing their training.
My name is Lachlan McCutcheon and I'm a contractor trainer here at LPGSA. A few years ago, I developed a new refresher course that qualified practitioners have to attend every 3rd year in order to maintain their qualification. As part of the refresher course, we require installers to take a core gas skills assessment. Through this assessment, it became clear that many installers were quite lacking in the core skills required within their trade. It further became clear that a large part of the reason for this was that though they had all undergone the same theoretical training at LPGSA, the practical element to their qualification was being undergone via a mentorship process. This is a process akin to an apprenticeship, where an installer will carry out a series of installations under the guidance of a mentor, the net result being that many new candidates within the LPG industry were receiving differing information and advice from their mentors around the country, thus creating a situation where there was no standardized practical method, and often, from a practical perspective at least, they found themselves lacking in foundational practical skills. As a result, and in cooperation with LPGSA, I developed the LPG Domestic Practical course. This course provides candidates with a clear guidance in carrying out gas installations at domestic premises. It aims to assist the installer in carrying out safe, functional, and efficient gas installations. It addresses the core gas skills and progresses from conceptual and planning stages through to calculation and sizing, use of tools and equipment, to installation and testing. We are confident that the skills being passed on here will assist in creating an environment of higher quality installers, resulting in a safer and more professional LPG industry within South Africa.
For more information on LPG training offering, visit our website on www.lpgas.co.za. Follow us on social media handle at LPGSA or call us on 011 886 9702.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Navan. With that, I hope you guys have a better understanding of what we as the LP Gas Association do, and a better understanding of the existing regulatory framework, specifically with regards to the pressure equipment regulations. And with that, I will hand over to Monet, who is a Divisional Fire Safety Chief and a representative of the Emergency Management Services. Over to you, Monet.
Good afternoon, all. I'm not sure whether you can see my presentation for me, please.
Navan, if you could assist with loading Monet's presentation, please. Yes, and you are visible.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to put that up. Give me a second.
While Navan's getting that ready, good afternoon, all. Like Tony said, my name is Bornay Germeshuis. I'm employed by the City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services as a divisional chief, and part of my duties are to liaise with various associations and standards generating bodies. So I'll be talking out of that viewpoint, and then again also in terms of what the the challenges and the problems are that we do see, and I'll try and do that more in a visual context, seeing that this is the afternoon shift. Navan, if you can go to the next slide, please. So Zandi has touched on the treasury equipment regulations, but just again, in short, if you just read it selectively, even it says no person shall handle, store, or distribute any gas, install or remove an appliance, pressure equipment or system for gas, or use pressure equipment or systems for gas in any manner other than in accordance with the relevant safety standard incorporated into these regulations. If you can go to the next slide, please, Nirvan. So those safety standards primarily that we are concerned with would be the SANS 10087 series of standards, and then for a local authority, specifically parts 1, 3, 7, and 10. Next one, please. Skip that one. So like Zandi also said, so the bylaws is only applicable to a specific local authority. And each local authority has the competence to make their own bylaws. So these differ between the various local authorities, and it's generally based on what their understanding is of certain aspects of the safety requirements, and then also based on their experiences, past fires, those sort of things that they have encountered, incidents, and yeah, that informs them of how they do their bylaws. And then obviously also sometimes it's the risk appetite for that local authority, what they would want to have, what we would not want to have. But generally it is based on the standards. So the only ones that I can really talk to is specifically the City of Johannesburg's emergency services bylaws. And yeah, there's maybe one or two or three clauses that deals with LP gas, but it basically comes down to this specific clause 46(1), which says no person may use, handle, or store liquefied petroleum gas in any quantity exceeding that stipulated in Schedule 2. So within the City of Johannesburg, it's 100 kilograms on the premises, unless the person is in possession of certificate of registration contemplated in Section 35, and the use, handling, and storage of liquefied petroleum gas complies with requirements of SABS 087, parts 1, 3, 7, and 10. Our bylaws, unfortunately, has not been revised since the change from SABS to SANS, but it's still applicable. So that is what's saying. We do not put in unnecessary additional requirements, and most local authorities don't. A bylaw is written there for them to be able to enforce certain parts of the legislation. We are not employed or appointed to enforce the pressure equipment regulations, but we do have, under the Fire Brigade Services Act, a responsibility to look at safety. So therefore, local authorities would then implement a bylaw and take certain parts or certain sections of other legislation and put it into the bylaws so that they could enforce that. The next slide, please, and then you can hold for me on the challenges slide. Okay, so in terms of challenges, and I think first of all, like most other government departments, sections, entities, the local authorities have a challenge in terms when it comes to resources, to employees, to manpower, to technology. It was previously said that the LPG industry in South Africa is probably about 10 years behind in ICT type technology. I think some of the local authorities are even further behind. So yeah, that is definitely challenges. Training is a challenge. We talk a lot about, and I mean the industry and the association has done a lot in terms of training. But sometimes what we found is that, yes, the person is trained and they have the knowledge. They don't necessarily have the wisdom to implement the knowledge that they have gained. And we see that in practical examples quite often, and not only just from the installer side, also from us within the local authorities. Our staff might sometimes have the necessary knowledge based on what the standard says in black and white. But as we know, many of these standards, they're written in black and white, but there's a whole lot of grey in between. So we sometimes see problems with the knowledge of how do you apply what is written in a standard. And I think that's where, with the World LPGS Association, in terms of their guideline books and material that they have, although it's not based on the South African standards, but that could definitely be useful from the association side, and maybe the association could possibly look at doing some of their own sort of guidelines based on the South African situation. But then again, if we go to industry has got a whole lot more resources than what the local authorities currently have. To give you an idea, we probably, within the city of Johannesburg, inspect roughly 30 LP gas installations in a month, and there are many more within the city's boundaries, but we do not have the capability of getting to all of them. So within industry also, I mean, you've got, just as a general installer, you need to comply with the SAQCC gases requirements. Those installers that are members of the LPGSA, I mean, they need to comply to, I would say, additional principles in terms of what they do and how they do it. But yeah, sometimes we do see a failing in these. Out of interest, I was looking at the one poll that I believe what was running this morning, and the top three, I think, risks that were identified is cylinder filling, consumer premises, and then also to go regarding the road transport of cylinders. And we'll see in my slides coming up where this is definitely a concern. But after we've got all these bad practices that happens in industry, how do we fix it? And that becomes problematic from a local authority point of view. We can enforce, we can write fines, we can sometimes attempt to have premises closed down. But like David said earlier, unless you can have a significant enforcement activity and really, I won't say hurt a person who contravenes, but really make them think twice about contravening any of the rules and regulations, it becomes very difficult. And we need to now try and negotiate a fix, firstly between the client, then you've got the supplier who possibly supplies him with the gas, you've got the installer that did the actual installation, and then us on the other end trying to try and sort things out. And what we find very often is that maybe one or two out of the four entities involved would be more than willing to do the fixing, but that there's resistance from the other entities, whether it is to protect their or trying to protect their name in the industry, not wanting to admit that they have been at fault, or just doing what is right is sometimes a problem. So Narwan, I think if we can scroll over to the next slide, please. So these are just some examples of problems that we do experience. So this is maybe not an installer issue, but it comes down to, like I said, somebody raised the matter of transportation of gas cylinders. Somebody needed to deliver or supply these gas cylinders to this consumer site. And yeah, I mean, this is not in terms of what the standards allow or require. So we might not be able to get to this premises, but whoever delivers to them should, take note of, I'm delivering in excess of 100 kilograms to a premises, and therefore within the city of Johannesburg, it should be registered. Where's your registration certificate? But that does not happen. And if we look at the one picture there on the top left, it's all different brands of cylinders, all with the same seal. So again, we're coming to the idea of rogue fillers, hijacked cylinders, those sort of things. Next slide, please. So this looks like a reasonably okay installation. And initially when this photo was sent to me a couple of days ago, I thought, no, it doesn't look too bad, until I opened it up on the computer and I could see it on the big screen. If you look at the bollards are 110 millimeter PVC drain pipes that's just been planted in the ground. So again, that now comes back to the installer obviously had the knowledge that bollards would be necessary, but he did not necessarily have the wisdom of understanding why the bollards were there or was necessary and how they should be constructed. And currently, unfortunately, the SAN standard is a bit quiet on that, but hopefully that will be addressed soonest. If you can please scroll to the next one. So that installation there is connected and piped into the building to various of these quick connect fittings, which generally probably isn't such a bad installation if it's used with the correct appliances in the correct way. But if we scroll to the next one, this is what the installation continues to within this premises. Now, this is a premises that is used for public entertainment, public convenience on a regular basis, with a couple of hundred people visiting there during those times. And yeah, there's all these interconnected pipe work and things. So again, in terms of the installer might have been installed it correctly. He most likely did what was required from him by the client, but did he give the client the necessary knowledge and wisdom to understand what is acceptable and what is not? You scroll to the next one, please. So similar, same place. Yeah. Somebody needed to sell that appliance to a consumer. Did that seller impart the necessary knowledge or wisdom onto the user of what they can do and what they can't do? The last time I showed this picture to another meeting, they were quite happy to see at least they've got extinguishers, although they're standing on the floor, which is again also not really within the standards. If you can scroll to the next one for me, Navan. So also what we find is we have lots of legacy issues, especially in the larger metropolitan areas, where the larger metropolitan areas absorbed some of the smaller areas. And then obviously you also would find that probably in the smaller, more rural local authorities, that there's installations that are neither compliant with the latest edition and probably not compliant with the previous 10 editions of the standards that were issued. But yet they are in operation, yet they were accepted by someone at that stage when they were installed. They generally actually do have compliance certificates, and in some local authorities they are even registered. That's an installation for all intents and purposes within a building. Now the standard says you may not manifold any cylinders within a building, but yeah. Next one, please. Again, and then like I said, I mean, this is not done by a smallish installer. This has got the names and the details of a reasonably sized company. But yeah, installation within 3 walls. And it's not like we very often get told, but when the installer did the installation, it complied. The owner of the premises or the user of the premises came and did changes afterwards. If you look at this one, it's clear that if you look at the pipe work, that's not something that was done after, or that 3rd wall wasn't built there after the fact. That 3rd wall was there when the installer did the pipe work. And yeah, that is a problem. Next one, please. Again, similar thing, and this is a recent one, probably just happened just here before lockdown. And again, not a smallish company. Both the user and the supplier installing company are actually quite big in the market. But again, the installation within a building under a concrete roof. At least they try to minimize the idea of the 3 walls, but for all intents and purposes, it's not within the standard. If we can possibly go to the next one. So this becomes concerning. One of the points that I was asked to raise by the association under my challenges was regarding firefighting and problems that we experience at incidents. So this is a good example. This is a residential house, which at some stage got converted into a, let's call it a wedding venue. But other than a couple of small changes, if you get there 3 o'clock in the morning, it's going to look like the residential house, and we are going to approach it like the residential house. If you scroll to the next one, please. However, within that room is a 2-on 2-off gas installation. Yeah. And again, so there's a requirement for signage. There's signage. It's on the inside because we don't want to see signage on the outside of the building. It does not make for good photography for a wedding venue, possibly. So yes, signage, access to equipment, access to the installation, having your installations registered when and where required, all those things, it's there to assist, hopefully, when an incident does occur, that the fire department is aware of it, that the fire department can, within a reasonable or have a reasonable chance of effectively managing that installation or that incident. If we don't know about it, we won't be able to manage it. If the installation is not compliant with the basic safety rules, we will most likely not be able to manage that incident. And unfortunately, that is where we do see a number of fire losses. Next one for me, Nirvan. Similar thing. Unfortunately, and it's probably not something that this meeting would want to hear, but unfortunately, not everybody can have gas. Or if they do want to have gas, they might need to invest a little bit more to have an installation which they can have, which is compliant. This is an installation. Shop A had an installation, and then Shop B decided, well, they want the installation, but there's not enough space. So they came up with this idea of building a diagonal wall between the 2 installations to give you a separation. But again, knowledge and wisdom, the standard says not between more than 2 walls, and yeah, not at an angle of less than 90 degrees. Obviously, this one does not comply. Next one, Nirvan. So again, another installation where the installer is more than happy to put his his name and his details on there. But yeah, obviously it does not comply with what the current regulations are. If you can go to the next one, please. So this one is an interesting installation. It is basically 10 dumpies on one site, but with a wall in between. Now, the standard again is clear that you should not have more than 6 dumpies in an installation, and this qualifies as one installation because they are all interconnected. It's not 2 different groups of dumpies that is separated by a wall, which in that case, in any case, would have needed to give you a 3-meter separation. This is one. And to highlight the idea of when we try and assist the industry or the owners and the users to fix this problem, both the building owner and the user are quite happy to have this problem remedied. But when they approach the gas supplier as well as the installer, both the gas supplier and installer insisted that there is absolutely nothing wrong with this installation and that it is 100% compliant with the rules and the regulations. So that is problematic. So we're now sitting where we require something to be done, and the end user, who is the person that should be protected by industry to make sure that the correct decisions are taken, are not necessarily being fed or given the correct information. If we can go to the next one, Irwan. So again, also something that regularly comes up, especially at association meetings or just before association meetings or SABS meetings or any other meeting where there could possibly be issues regarding anti-competitive behavior and those sort of things. You may not discuss commercial interests, and standards should not be based on anything commercial. It's a problem. We try and measure safety against commercial interests, but that's the incorrect way to look at it. If you look at the fire losses recorded by the Fire Protection Association of Southern Africa for the year 2020, there were 63,000 fires that caused approximately 23 billion rands worth of damage. Now, out of interest sake, that 63,000 fires, that was reported by only 18% of the local authorities within South Africa. So if you think about it, there's another 80% of local authorities that did not contribute any information to the data. So you can probably times these values by another 400%. So safety is a commercial interest. It's not in conflict with commercial interests. It is a commercial interest. Next one, please, Nirvan. So there's a saying, we are all on this in the same boat. One of the earlier speakers showed a thing about stakeholders, and yes, we are all stakeholders within the LP gas industry. We are all stakeholders within the South African nation at the end of the day. But next line, please. But sometimes we have a different view on things, where it's some things are seen as somebody else's problem and not a problem that we feel that we need to collectively address. Next one, please, Navan. But in fact, we are all not necessarily in the same boat, but we are all in the same storm. Whether you a local authority, whether you a large industry player, whether you a small industry player, whether you a distributor of equipment, of pipe work, whether you the the driver that goes and delivers the gas at a consumer site. We are all in the same storm. When things are going to go wrong, they will go wrong for all of us. Some of us might just survive a little bit longer or have a little bit of more legal and or financial protection than what others would have. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Thanks, Tony. Back to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you for that awesome presentation. It is much appreciated. I'm not sure if there are any questions for either myself or Zandi or Monet. If there are any questions, I'll field them now. But if not, I will hand back to David for the Q&A session. Going once, going twice. Oh, okay, back to you, David.
Yeah, thanks, Tony, and thanks, Monet. Very, very interesting. And there's some photos there that I might borrow from you to use, because I have a collection of those for the Rogues Gallery that I use in some of the workshops that I run. I don't think there are any questions. There's a couple of comments saying it's been a very, very useful session. And just my own observation, we have amongst our membership, we have something like 35 associations around the world. And I think that the South African Association can hold its head up high in terms of what it's handling and tackling in terms of its scope. And it's a model there for a lot of other associations to follow. I'm also looking at the time. We've sort of run over a bit, and the thing about these virtual meetings is that people have meetings back to back, and I'm sure that people are hanging on, anxious to get off to join another meeting. So I want to keep this very, very short. But let me first of all say a big thank you to the association in South Africa for all the backroom support that's been put in to create this event, and also to my own colleagues who have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to make this run so smoothly. And I make that comment because the transition is always the key in these sorts of meetings, when you're moving from one presentation to another or one presenter to another. And I thought it was done incredibly well. So thank you for everybody in South Africa for driving the controls for this. That's my first comment. The second is that remind everybody that all the presentations that you saw today will be made available to everybody that has registered for this event. We'll review the chats to make sure that we have got everything covered, as I promised. There are some links in the chat box that have been put up. The IoT report, for example. Tamsin also put up the publications link for the WLPGA, where there is a plethora of information. We will repeat those links when we send out our information pack later. Just an interesting observation I'd make here. The word education has been used a number of times in the last 4 hours, and I think that's one of the key challenges we have is to educate those stakeholders that Mornay mentioned again of the LPG industry, and also all these new people to LPG that are coming in and joining. Thousands of them. We need to make sure that we're fully educated on all the issues that we've been talking about this morning and more. I think that's pretty well all I've got to say, other than thank you all for joining us. I think we had over 200 people attend this event, some coming in and out. Yeah, see you tomorrow, because we have part 2 tomorrow, which will start at 10 o'clock in the morning. And Hattie, would you like to come in and just say a few words as well as we sign off, because it's as much your event as ours.
Yes, David. The DDG at the DMRE often calls me mother of the LPG nation, and at this moment, I'm a very proud mother. I'm grateful for all presenters who really engaged us. I think I learned something new every day in this business. And today is no exception. And I can only hope that the 200 and more attendants feel the same as I feel in terms of the learnings that came out of here. Abdironi, I see you there. There's quite a lot of people that I saw that we normally try to we engage with. Ati, I see you from Autogas. Yes, I will put you through with David soon about Autogas. Don't worry. I know you're gonna come back. I'm really grateful, and I hope you found this session very informative. Don't miss tomorrow though. Tomorrow is all about developing the industry. Tomorrow we have two of my favorite countries, and my favorite country is South Africa at the end of the day. Let's leave it there. But India and Brazil, what they have managed to do for LPG industry is mind-blowing. And you have to be there to see that. You have to hear it from them firsthand. I'm very appreciative that they avail themselves. So don't miss out that opportunity. But we have our government stakeholders as well coming through tomorrow, the DMRE, and I saw quite a lot of them as well today here. The DEL, I saw them today here. So we really, really are appreciative of our stakeholders. Monet, you couldn't have made us prouder. We really thank EMS for availing yourself and for that presentation, that insight. You know, when we talk as LPGSA, it looks like we are making up stories. When the EMS talk, I hope now you listened as the operators of LPG or operators in the LPG industry, and you have learned a thing or two, and try to help us help you to grow this industry. That's all I can say. Thank you all. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Hattie. And from me, I just want to say, finally, keep safe to everybody. Thanks very much for joining today. It's been a pleasure to be involved in this, and very nice to make contact with a few people that I've not seen for a little while, and also some new people as well. And see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Thank you and goodbye.